Right now I have xDesign loaded on this side with my assembly. I'll kind of maximize that and just kind of show off the interface for a second. Take a look, and by the way, all this is real-time kind of stuff. This isn't doctored up or anything like that. Um, so I want to rotate and just kind of show how smooth this interface is. Like this is pretty good response time as far as zooming and orbiting around the model. Um, you can see it's somewhat similar to SOLIDWORKS in the form of a feature tree over here on the left side. The command manager has kind of been relocated. It's down here on the bottom and it's called the action bar now, but it's pretty familiar. You can even display the names for those of you who are kind of not used to the different symbols. But a lot of these features are going to be really second nature to a SOLIDWORKS user. So it's a pretty easy transition there. You can see we're in the assembly environment right now, and I mean, of course, we can push and pull and move these things back around. This is, once again, I'm not doctoring anything up here. This is real type feedback that we're getting. Pretty responsive. Maybe not quite as responsive as our SOLIDWORKS desktop that's been honed to perfection over the past 25 years, but pretty good, to be honest. What our purpose is for, I guess, what our goal is in this particular webinar, what we're going to be doing is replacing this red yoke that's right here that's holding up those two different monitor stands. So this one's kind of overbuilt. It's got a little bit more material than what we really need. And we're going to be designing a new yoke and documenting it, of course. So I'm going to switch over to this other xDesign application window that I have. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with that part design. So we've got our default planes. Those ought to look pretty familiar to those of you who've used any type of parametric CAD modeler in the past. And the first thing we'll do is go ahead and create a sketch on that top plane. Now, for those of you who've been longtime SOLIDWORKS users, you might be happy to know that we have shortcut rings. So these are pretty nice. There was actually a recent update where they rolled that out. So you can just right-click, drag, and then you can kind of go about doing whatever you need here. So I'll go ahead and I'll drop in whatever dimensions we need. I'm just going to start by drawing a couple of circles and doing an extrude. And to do that extrude, I'll go ahead and I'll turn on my command names down here just so everybody can get a little bit more familiar with the interface here. And we'll just click on our regular old extrude. This is just like a boss extrude inside of SOLIDWORKS. Nothing really too crazy there. We even have all those familiar mid-plane conditions and things of that nature that we've grown accustomed to maintain symmetry. So that's kind of nice to have there. Now what I'm going to do is draw up the side portions, the little parts that are going to connect to the monitor stands. And to do that, I'll start off with just drawing a little line here. And you can see how whenever we're drawing it, it brings up the dimension. And that allows us to just key in a dimension and it'll populate it for us kind of right off the bat. The other thing that we can do is we can just click on a line or a sketch entity for that matter, and the dimension will automatically pop up for us. It's kind of grayed out, meaning it's not an official dimension until we click on it. And then we can enter in whatever value we need. So you'll notice as I work through this interface that a lot of the things that I need to do are just within what I like to say arm's reach. Not literally arm's reach, but within a very short distance of where I need to place the mouse to actually make that click. So anytime you can save mouse travel, I think that is really beneficial. There's also built-in shortcuts. So once again, I'm going to reference that line command again, just because it's really commonly used. So if I hit my L key, it brings me directly into that line command. And then I can come in and drop in whatever else I need, right? Sketch relations, also really familiar here. You can hold down Control, select multiple entities, and that fly out or context toolbar pops up, and you can jam in whatever you need. So really familiar, and I'm trying to kind of build that in here. That just really familiar kind of stuff here for those of you who've been SOLIDWORKS users. We can also convert entities, so we can borrow geometry from kind of the other stuff that we might have here. So that works pretty readily as well. Oh, I didn't apply one of these here. There we go. Fully defined. Nobody gigged me on that. I was not about to leave that sketch underdefined. Okay. Um, you might also be happy to know that we have the power trim command that y'all might be familiar with. So we can come in and we can trim these things up as needed. And now I have a perfect little profile that I can come in and finish up my extrude with. All right, we'll do this one. We're going to maintain symmetry again and do this extrude for like 30 millimeters. All right, so we're starting to take shape here, kind of coming along. This is starting to look like something that might actually be useful in our actual top level assembly. But one of the things we wanted to do was kind of cut down on some of the material. We had high material usage, and an easy tool to accomplish that with would be the shell command. So I'm sure y'all have used this one before. We're going to go ahead and shell this with a thickness of 5 millimeters just on this outside portion that's right here. Now you may notice that if we shell this with that particular distance, it's going to create an offset right here. And that's not really going to look very nice. It's not going to maintain that wall thickness that's sitting here on the main circular boss. Well, cool thing we have with this shell command in xDesign is to do a custom thickness for a particular face. So we can select this inner face right here and do a custom thickness for it. And we'll do a little bit of math. If you remember, we had a 50 millimeter outer circle and then a 35 millimeter inner circle. So we can do that. So that gives us 15 for the total wall thickness. 15 divided by 2 because we're dealing with a circle gives us 7.5 millimeters. And if we complete that, we can kind of take a look at this and see if that actually looks proper with our section view tool. So all that kind of stuff, all these tools I'm showing should be super familiar for those of you who've been using SOLIDWORKS for a while. So that looks pretty good now. We might just want to kind of finalize some of the design work on here by maybe adding a couple of fillets. Once again, this is really nice. xDesign does a good job of putting everything within arm's reach. So I can just click on this edge and then just jump straight into that fillet tool. We'll add a little 1 millimeter fillet here. By the way, tangent propagation also works. If I just select an edge, it propagates over there. And of course, we don't want to just click edges. We might want to select complete faces as well. So we can do all of that here in xDesign. So I'll just fillet all this good stuff up, make it look nice and pretty before we kind of move into the assembly modeling area. All right, so that's one side of the component that we have designed up here. What we might want to do now is actually mirror this about itself, because remember, we're kind of designing things symmetrically. So we'll come in and just mirror this entire body. All right, so we've got one more feature that we want to apply to this guy. And this is going to be a little angular cutout along the center section here. So this is actually going to be pretty cool what I'll showcase here. This is actually one area where the xApps have a little advantage over your desktop SOLIDWORKS. So check this out. I'll go ahead and make my little cutout here. And let's get a little axis to revolve this around, right? Because we're going to be making a revolve. I'll go ahead and change this to maybe some construction geometry just for dimensioning purposes. By the way, you might be happy to know that the diameter style dimensioning technique that you have from SOLIDWORKS is carried over here as well. So we can come in and drop in that easy to use diameter dimension. Pop in our angle. And we should be ready to do our revolve. Okay, cool. So, I just went in and I accidentally clicked, and I didn't really do this. I did this on purpose. I accidentally clicked the extrude button instead of the revolve. Some of you might have had some experience in doing this, right? And typically that involves just closing out of the feature and re-entering into the other feature. Well, with xDesign, you have something called super feature, which allows you to just change back and forth between these different feature types, all from within that same menu. So I can just say, hey, I'm going to change this over to a revolve. And you know what? Instead of adding material, it's actually going to be a cut. And then I can select my axis of revolution. And boom, I can go about my merry way. Done deal, right? So pretty cool, I think. The ability to it gives you a lot of flexibility, I think, is the primary takeaway there. So let's go ahead and save this guy out.